Hello and welcome to topic 4, response to exercise and metabolism. So we're going to do this, let's look at the spec first, just quickly, let's just zoom in. So we have to be able to respond to exercise, and when we do, our heart rate and breathing volume increase. I would just know that as facts. And during exercise to supply muscles with more oxygenated blood. And it's focusing on the oxygen, really, because muscle cells have the store of glucose for respiration fuel. If insufficient oxygen is supplied, anaerobic respiration takes place in muscles. Incomplete oxidation of glucose means we get lactic acid, therefore we get an oxygen debt. It's important we know what that is. And if that continues for a while, then muscles get fatigued and stop contracting efficiently. Again, do 50 press ups and you'll find the last 5, really, really difficult compared to the first 5 because you're building up fatigue. Blood flow through the muscles transports lactic acid to the liver, which is converted back into glucose. Oxygen debt is there. Then I've got a silly gap. Sorry, I'll correct that on your sheet. Is the amount of extra oxygen the body needs after exercise to react with accumulated lactic acid and remove it from the cells. So we're going to go through that. Let's go through that now. Try to make a little picture. So let's have the scenario that a mammal, and we're a mammal, it sees a predator and it sprints away from it. So my heart's not going quickly, my breathing's not going quickly, yet I suddenly need to do a lot of muscle contraction. So let's just label my little diagram first. So this is a red blood cell. It's taking up almost all the space in the blood vessel. So this must be a capillary. So this is a cell of the capillary, cell of capillary wall, 1P double L. Yeah, and it's 1 cell thick. It's also a flattened thin cell. So I get fast diffusion, and therefore these red blood cells means that oxygen's going to diffuse from here to this, and this is a muscle cell over here. So oxygen's going to diffuse to it. What I'm saying here is that there's not sufficient oxygen for the activity of the muscles. Okay, and let's have the blood flowing that way as well. So these are muscle cells. They're all muscle cells. So let's kind of elaborate on this one here. There's its nucleus, and then they have loads and loads of these little things inside them, actually more sophisticatedly arranged than that. But these are mitochondria. And if they're getting lots of oxygen, then they're happy. They also have a store, they have lots of G in them as well. And G, in this case, that is glycogen, which is a store of glucose. So I'm going over that line, but never mind. So they're going to be doing a bit of aerobic and a lot of anaerobic respiration if they suddenly have to do it, if there's not enough oxygen being supplied to them. So if that's the case, they're doing aerobic, they're going to make carbon dioxide. So that waste is going to go into the blood plasma. So that's there. CO2 is going into there. So this space here is blood plasma. Blood. There we go. Blood plasma. It's like a yellowy kind of liquid. Should I show off and do a bit of, yeah, so this is going to be all yellow, very light yellow. And these are my red blood cells. Oh, it looks perfect. Now it's so much more engaging when it's in colour. It's red because of hemoglobin. Could add that to it. But if it's doing anaerobic as well, then these cells are going to be producing lactic acid. So from this cell here, pick a pen that works. There we go. We're going to get this is showing lactic acid. It has to get rid of the lactic acid because acids they will lower pH, small p, big H, and like the enzymes needed by the cells of the muscle cells, they wouldn't work correctly. The proteins don't work correctly at lower pH. So just like enzymes denature at low pH, or some do, then that would be the case. So it gets rid of the lactic acid again into the blood plasma, and that's going to travel around the body. Okay, so that's like the scenario we are doing with. Once I'm up and running, once my breathing rate is up and going, and my heart rate is up and going, then I can have a bit of a gap on the predator. I can slow down a bit, and hopefully have some like sustained running so that I can get away from the thing, whatever it is. It's hard to imagine anything that's going to kill me, but anyway. So yeah, so removal of waste during anaerobic and aerobic respiration. So let's have the air outside. This is going to contain, oxygen is the main gas in the air that I need. Well, it is the gas in the air that I need, and then that's going to be taken in by the lungs. So here's our lungs. Well, we've just said that we make CO2. So CO2 is going to arrive and it's going to go into the lungs. So that's our waste CO2 from the diagram above. We've also made lactic acid as well. Well, lactic acid isn't removed by the lungs. That's removed by the liver. So here's our liver. Now, to get rid of that, it has to oxidize it. So therefore, I'm going to need from the lungs, we're going to need oxygen as well that comes from the lungs to the liver. So, the blood's going past the alveoli in the lungs, it's picking up the oxygen, it's delivering it to the liver. And then the liver can do two things with the lactic acid now. So it can basically take lactic acid, convert it into glucose, and it can take lactic acid and it can also oxidize it into CO2 plus water. And then the CO2 is going to just form the CO2 there and go out again. Okay, the syllabus talks about this bit here, about lactic acid can be converted into glucose. However, to do that, it needs energy, and it does that by oxidizing some of the lactic acid into carbon dioxide and water. So this pathway releases energy to do this pathway. So I'm just including this because it appears on mark schemes anyway, because it is what happens, but our syllabus strangely doesn't say it. The oxygen needed here, so this here, that's the oxygen debt, O2 debt. That's the O2 needed to do that's needed here. Yeah, that's the oxygen needed to oxidize the lactic acid into carbon dioxide and water to release the energy to convert other lactic acid molecules back into glucose. Lactic acid is basically half a glucose. It's like glucose split in two with a hydrogen added. But yeah, it's so that's our oxygen debt, and that's why we breathe heavily after exercise. I've finished exercising, but I'm still breathing heavily because I'm trying to get this extra oxygen to my liver to get rid of the lactic acid. The misconception is that people say that that the muscles still need the oxygen. Well, a muscle that's not contracting anymore doesn't need the oxygen anymore. It's all going to the liver. So hopefully that was fine. Let's do then. Oh yeah, metabolism. At the bottom it says all these aspects are covered in more detail in the relevant specification sections, but are linked together here. So we need to know that metabolism is important. Explain the importance of sugar, amino acids, fatty acids, glycerol in the synthesis and breakdown of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Metabolism is the sum of all the reactions in a cell or the body. The energy transferred by respiration in cells is used by the organism for the continual enzyme control processes of metabolism that include synthesizing new molecules. And metabolism includes, and it gives some detail here, and I'm just going to go through a bit of this detail. So first one, it says glucose to starch, glycogen, and cellulose. So let's look at making complex carbohydrates, because all of them are complex carbohydrates. So let's go for plants first. Algae. Well, these make glucose in photosynthesis. That's my shorthand for photosynthesis. Don't use it in exam. And I'm going to make glucose a little red splodge. That's representing glucose. So let's draw starch out. So all it does is it joins glucose together in like this pattern. It's more of like in 3D, it's like a helix, a spiral type thing, helter skelter. So it just keeps on going and going and going. So that's called starch. Yeah, it's a storage carbohydrate. Or we can just join the glucose in straight lines. It's the same monomer. I'm making polymers here. That's cellulose. That's for building cell walls. Okay, so that's implants, and both of those are metabolic processes because it's building starch. It's to basically put energy into these bonds here. That creates, that needs energy, and therefore energy, and therefore, yeah, that's a metabolic process. Okay, and then let's do animals. We don't make glucose; we get it from our diet. Yeah, I eat starch and I get glucose. Yeah, so we gain glucose from diet. I don't make it. I can actually make it from fat when I'm in desperation. So yeah, so what we do, so we have lots of glucose that we get absorbed by our small intestine, and we join it together as well because I want to store it, and we just join it in like this like branchy type pattern. See how I'm kind of like branching off there, and I'm coming down here, and I'm branching off over here, branching down here, branching over here, branching over, branching. So this molecule is called glycogen. Yeah, and that's stored in the liver and muscle cells. And I can basically turn it back into glucose by breaking those bonds. So yeah, so forming glycogen in my liver and muscle cells is a metabolic process. So some of, I'm warm today because I'm forming glycogen because yeah, energy conversion is not efficient and therefore heat's produced. Then it says making lipids. Well, you know about digestion of lipids. So a lipid is made of glycerol and 3 fatty acids. So yeah, so that's glycerol, and these are 3 times fatty acids. So all we need to know is that um, I can take in glucose. Glucose can be converted into lipids, yeah, in a metabolic process. So we do this. If I eat a lot of sugar, my liver's full of glycogen, my muscles are full of glycogen. Right, I'm going to store it as fat around my body. So lipids, these are fats, oils, and waxes. You've met waxes on the waxy cuticle of a leaf. Seeds store oil, and mammals tend to store fat. But there's also fat in an avocado. That's not an animal; it's a plant. Next, protein synthesis. You do a lot of this in year 11. Well, you do a lot of protein synthesis your entire life, but you learn about it in year 11. And therefore, again, let's go to our plant example again. Plants make glucose. So I've got glucose made in photosynthesis. Glucose made in photosynthesis. And I want to make proteins. Well, I can't make proteins out of glucose. Therefore, I can convert it into an amino acid. So plants make their own amino acids. But to do that, we need the input of nitrate ions from soil. Okay, so if I take glucose and add a nitrate ion, so back to our like red dot example, there's glucose. This is an amino, so this is a nitrate ion, sorry, and therefore my amino acid is kind of that and that joined together. Okay, but there's 20 different amino acids, and then all we do, or plants do, is they take the amino acids, and then the ribosome join amino acids, shorthand, into proteins. So so you can end up with lots of chains of these, and they tend to fold over. It never branches. This is I'm making like a protein now. So all these are amino acids, and it's got this funny shape because it's folded and that's because it's a protein. Yeah, so a protein is a folded chain of amino acids. I'm just adding some colours to show that the amino acids are all different. I'm running out of colours quite quickly here. I've only got 4 colours on my site. Quickly press that and get a purple. There we go. Yeah. I've now sorted a misconception because I've got a red dot here that's glucose. This red dot over here is an amino acid. But yeah, we have that, and basically little bonds form like between these two here and that there and that there, and therefore I get a protein, and then that protein, if I kind of like show it in its like diagram form, that might look like like that. Oh look, it's an enzyme, and this shape is its active site. So yeah, plants make their own proteins because they make their own amino acids. We're an animal. We gain our proteins from eating other things. We digest it into amino acids, and then our liver will process those amino acids. It will use the ones it send on the ones that we need. It can convert some into others, but some are excess, and therefore we have to get shut of them. And we're going to get to that in a second because we're on to deamination in a moment or two. Oops, I'm trying to delete that. Sorry, not write something on. Respiration. I'm not going to write lots here because we mentioned it before. This is the main reaction of metabolism. It provides the energy for all the others. Okay? So that's the one I would talk about more than any. And then finally, deamination. This is, I've got excess amino acids. So we've got excess amino acids in the liver. They've been delivered to it in the blood, and we convert them into ammonia. Toxic. That's toxic. That process is called deamination. Same as the title above, but never mind. And then we just convert this into a safer product called urea. It's less toxic, but still toxic. And that gets filtered out by kidney. Filtered out by kidney. I'm getting scruffy, getting biology fatigue, as you probably are as well. But yeah, hopefully you found something useful there. And I'll stop there. Take care.